Oh, I'll do it one more time. Since Bruce sent this, I feel like I have to use it, and I like it. So that will go to 2023 and hopefully keep moving. Okay, so welcome to the final session of ITICSE 2022 in Dublin. I'm thrilled to be here. I wish that Keith could be here with us. Keith is at home and doing much better, but wasn't quite able to be in yet today. I miss you, Keith. So first, we're going to have our keynote, our closing keynote. And then after that, I will start off with the official closing of the conference, followed by some awards up to introducing ITICSE 2023 next year. So without further ado, I'd like to present to you Letizia Jaccheri, who is here to give our afternoon keynote.
Women are underrepresented in computer science, both in studies and in the profession. And why it's important to do something with this problem? Because, for three reasons. For a social reason, because we want to give equal opportunities to everybody. For an economic reason, because companies need talents and they need to get talents from the whole population, and for an environmental reason, because the problems are so huge that we need a creative, diverse force to solve them.
The main aim of EU GAIN is to improve gender balance in informatics at all levels. We do this by being a network. We are a network of European colleagues who are trying to improve gender balance in their countries and in their research communities throughout these 4 years that the project is active.
EU GAIN covers representatives from 38 European countries. It is funded by the COAST program and allows researchers to set up their interdisciplinary networks in Europe and beyond.
EU GAIN is organized into 5 working groups, where the first one is looking into the situation from high school to university, second working group from bachelor-master studies to PhD, the third one from PhD to professors, and then in the fourth working group, we are looking at the cooperation with industry and society, and in the fifth at strategy and dissemination. EU GAIN is an open, interdisciplinary and growing network welcoming academics, practitioners, and relevant stakeholders to contribute to the activities of EU GAIN work plan.
If you want to learn more about our CUSE action, please have a look to our website, eugain.eu, and follow us in our Twitter and Facebook account.
Okay, let's go a bit back. We will go forward to EU GAIN again. I like to go back to 1343, when the University of Pisa was founded, and it was the third university in the world after Paris and Bologna. And for us who graduated from that university, we are a bit proud about that. And this, in my imagination, in my mind, set the start of the story that I'm going to tell you, because some years later in Pisa in the 60s, at the time when I was born, the first Italian computer was built. It was built 500 meters from my house, but nobody in my family has never studied science, nor they knew anything about that computer. But I like to think that my story is linked to that project. It was a cooperation project between the University of Pisa and the Olivetti, that was an Italian company producing at the time typewriters. So from that first computer, that for those who understand the Latin language, it was called La Calcolatrice, that is a female word. But then later, when I was a student at the University of Pisa in the 80s, it was already called Il Calcolatore. And this is something that I think about now. Maybe I think it became male when computers became powerful. I don't know, but let's keep this, and you can remember that in Italian we have la calcolatrice and il calcolatore, and now la calcolatrice is only about some small machines that do some simple calculation. Anyway, after my master degree, I was programmer for a couple of years. I will never regret that I worked in the industry, if only for a short time. And then in the 90s, I started a PhD at Politecnico di Torino in north of Italy. And at that time, it was the time when internet was built in Italy, in Europe, the big internet infrastructure. And our supervisor was Silvano Gai was one of the pioneers in building the Italian infrastructure. And I remember that once, as you can see in this picture, we connected from home to the computer, to the VAX machine at the university. And we were playing all the time, but I think that in that moment, we knew that it was an historical moment, because with the analog camera, we took a picture about ourselves, and you can see me with three young men playing and connecting this computer to the main computer of the university. At the beginning of year 2000, I stopped up and I thought, okay, now I have been in this world of computers already for 20 years, because it was 20 years since I started to program, 20 years since I started to study computer science. And I thought that we were almost at the end of the computer path. And if you download this book, unfortunately, is only in Italian and Norwegian, so you should read the Scandinavian or a Latin language, but you read this story that I write about the hardware, about the first computer, about the internet and everything. And I thought again that it was an end, but instead it was a beginning, because year 2000 we can still see as a beginning of the digitalization revolution. And it was also a beginning for me. I was so lucky that in 2002, I get the last professorship that was labeled to women before it became not allowed in EU. And since Norway is not part of EU, but we have to respect the EU regulation, so now it's not allowed anymore to open professorship for women. And so I became full professor quite young, thanks to this woman professorship. And I must admit that at the beginning I had a bit of low confidence. I was almost ashamed that I get this professorship. Now I don't regret anymore, and I am proud, and I think that I have tried to give something back to the university that gave to me this possibility to become a young female professor. So our university has 4,000 students. We have, of course, many courses. One of the courses that is very near to my heart, that I have been working with for 20 years, is called Experts in Team. It's a course that is mandatory for all students, master students at our university. And I worked in one instance of this course that was organized around the concept of art and technology. And through that course and through the interaction with generation of students who were coming from very different background, I learned many things about art, about innovation. And here in this picture, you see one of the many projects that has been developed in that course. It was one group that made a simple game made in Scratch, connected to a bike, to a second-hand bike. And through that game, you could experience how difficult it is to produce water in the different countries. So another student who had more entrepreneurial capability and ambitions liked that idea. He wanted to make a master thesis on the idea, and further connected to one of our great role models we have at our university, Professor Alfinge Wang, who is a serial entrepreneur, the inventor of Kahoot. They managed to make a company, and they managed to deploy all this bike in many, many training centers of Norway. And this is something, there are stories that we are, as professors at our university, we are very proud about. In the last, what I have been doing in the last years, the year when I turned 50, in 2015, I get a telephone call from a former student of mine at Politecnico in Torino, and she asked me if I wanted to sit in the board of Reply, that is one of the biggest Italian IT companies. So why do I talk about myself? Because I see myself as a subject of this intersection between women and computer science. Why did they call me in Norway to come back? Because they didn't find anyone who could sit in their board. She was the only woman in this board of 9 men, and she was also the CEO of the company. And so she asked me if I could take this role. I said yes, and for 3 years I commuted many times per year to these board meetings. It was extremely interesting. I understood a lot about the IT industry, again, about Italy and so on. But after 3 years, when my role was not renewed, I understood once again that I belong to the university, and I'm very happy to be a professor, to be an educator, and to be here now to tell about, to share the knowledge, to share the lessons learned in university. Again, I think I am a late boomer or bloomer. I don't know how to say in English. I have never been one of those young academics who win prizes or things like this, no. But in year 2021, I won 2 prizes for gender equality, one given by the Association of IT Companies dealing with gender equality with 10,000 members, and one from our university. So I think that maybe, even if I'm doing small things, even if the problems are still huge, these prizes tell me that maybe I am in the right path. What I like to do more and more is to supervise master and PhD students. Unfortunately, after 30 years, I have lost the count of the master students, but I keep the count of the PhD and the postdoc. And if you go on my the small website that I maintain for my supervision, you will see a total of 56 names. Some are the students that I supervise as first supervisor and I use a lot of time with. Some are students I have been maybe second or third supervisor, somebody I am only opponent. But anyway, I'm very proud of this list, and in this list you can see 23 female and 33 male. And for the time being, I supervise 3 female and 3 men. Coming to the projects that will set up the scene for what I'm going to tell you, one of the projects that takes a lot of my time and a lot of my attention is the UGain that you have seen the video about. And I think that I am invited here because of the connection through UGain. One is the Idun project that I will also talk about, that is a Norwegian like a Norwegian sister of the UGAIN project, and 2 projects that I don't lead, luckily, otherwise I would not go to bed or would not go to bed at night. They are led by 2 fantastic colleagues of mine at my university. One is an ITN, a network. In Europe, we have this instrument of the ITN, provided by the Commission, that you can set up network of PhD, and this is about language learning and digitalization with a strong component about gender. So we study the gender differences in children who learn language by help of digital tool. And the last project that I am part with, it's really something that is very near to my heart, is we are at the very beginning, but this project is under the umbrella of the Commission of the new European Bauhaus, trying to bridge art, technology, inclusion, and climate neutrality. We are at the beginning. My role in the project is small. I am helping with the diversity plan, with the with something related to digitalization. But what I understand in this project, that the gender gap, if we don't bridge the gender gap, there will be people that will also experience not only the gender gap, but also the climate gap. Because if the climate problems will be solved by some digital tools and somebody is excluded by the digital tool, they will also be excluded by from the processes of achieving climate neutrality. But here we are at the very beginning. I will not tell you more about the last 2 projects. I will tell you more about the UGAIN, about the EDUN, and so on. So when I was started to preparing this keynote, and I was very proud that I was invited to be keynote at ITICSE, I tell in the lunch at in our department, I will be a keynote at ITICSE. About what? Oh, about gender. Gender. There is a guy, I don't tell who had just returned from CAI. And he told me, oh, it was so boring. At CAI, we had not 1, but 2 lectures about gender. Okay. Then I lost my confidence. Okay, how can I give a good lecture about gender if these lectures already were given at CAI, and if this guy is so bored about these lectures? But this is typical me. Then I go home and I say, no, I will not manage. Now I will write to be that I cannot be keynote because it will be boring, because it has already been done at CAI. But then I said, okay, 2 reasons. If CAI, the important conference CAI, decide to allocate to keynote to gender, it means that the problem is timely. If my colleague thinks that this is boring, it's good, because it means that we don't agree, everybody, because if we all agree, there is no point to talk, there is no point to work. Okay, he thinks it's boring, so maybe some of you will think that what I'm talking about is boring, is not relevant, and please be brave and tell in the end, either in the chat or tell to me, because in science, in research, we are here not to agree, not just to say, oh, so clever. We are here to disagree and to try to go ahead and do something better. But anyway, unfortunately, I have not found the videos of these 2 keynotes, but I have read some of the stuff that the 2 ladies have done. And now I'm going to start my own keynote. First, by giving a slide that I have built before this conference, but I am so happy that during this conference, the conversation is very much about these things. On the right side, you see the computer science stuff. You see the programming languages, the Google keynote yesterday, he was talking about programming. I was at the presentation by GitLab. They were talking very much about DevOps, about Scrum. So what you see on the right side is very much what we have in mind when we think about computer science. And when we see this fragment of Java, maybe you like C++ more, maybe you think Java is not good to teach, maybe you think that this code is not very elegant, but we understand this code. We understand, we all understand if system out print, we know what it is. When we go to the left, I don't know what you have in your head, because I don't know which languages you have. In English, for example, we have the word gender and sex, and I understand that sex is the biological concept, something that they decide at birth, this is a boy, this is a girl, but gender is something more dynamic, more social constructed, that I can decide how I want to be called at this conference, if I want to be called he or she or they or whatever I want to be called. In Norwegian, correct me, Jon and Birgit and the Scandinavian people if I'm wrong, we don't have gender and sex, but we have something called kjønn that is both gender and sex. One of my closest colleagues is Chinese. I asked him, how do you say in Chinese gender and sex? And he always, but then he told me that this is the word for gender and sex. And he says that they don't have two, they have one. And it would be very interesting to see in your own languages. We had a conversation at breakfast with one of you who said that in her own mother tongue, they don't even have a concept to describe this word to describe this concept. We have understood in the last years, again, that gender is not something binary. When we were programming one of the first database things we were doing, the query, all female and men, it was very Boolean stuff. Now it's not anymore like this. Think that the Me Too is something that is only 5 years old. That 6 years old, we didn't know about Me Too. So we think that computer science is going very fast, but I propose to you, disagree with me, that in the gender work, things are going even more fast. It's even more dynamic. The LGBT rights, now I'm not an expert, but I try to learn as much as I can. I have read that the homosexual movements for the rights of the homosexual people started more than 100 years ago, but it's only in the last years with Pride, with other movements that we talk in our daily life about LGBT right. And the same-sex marriage is something that happened for first time in 2001, at the same time when the agile process was invented. So it's and a very important theory when we work with gender, I am learning, that is the intersectionality theory that I will explain to you with a very simple example. If you are a woman, if you are LGBT, if you are of color, you will be discriminated 3 times, because for 3 times you belong to the category that has some disadvantage. And here we could add if you are old, because we work very much to promote girls, to promote young PhD, but who is working to promote, to help the older people in academia, or the older woman in general who want to go back to work. So this is the framework that I use to discuss the concept that will come now. And again, I hope that you will disagree with something, or you will add something to this. Okay, something strange happened on the slide, but it's not important. I want to show you a URL, maybe you know it from before. This eige.europa.eu gives a tool with a lot of statistics that you can automatically derive from your own, for your own country. Unfortunately, for Norway, we cannot derive because Norway is not in the European Commission, but for Ireland, for Lithuania, Netherlands, Portugal, Romania, all these countries, you can derive, you can compare according to this parameter like health, work, money, knowledge, power, and you can see how much the country do well in respect to gender equality. If you are not from a European country, you can use the Gender Gap Index, is another website that compares the different countries according to 4 dimensions. And I think it's very interesting to see that for health and education, we are almost at equality. 100% would mean equality, but for economic, we are at 58. And for political empowerment, we are only at 25. And for me, born Italian is not strange because I have never seen a president of Italy being a woman. When I think as a Norwegian, instead, we had the first female prime minister in the 80s. So it's very interesting. I use a lot of time now playing with these systems, and I hope that if you have not played yourself, maybe you are inspired to start. So now I have 3 more parts in my presentation. One is about education, and for each part, I choose one role model. For the education part, I choose, of course, Maria Montessori. And I think it's very beautiful, it's very powerful that still at the time when I was young and we had the Lire in Italy, we had luckily the picture of this great teacher and doctor and thinker, Maria Montessori, that was on the banknote of the 1,000 lire that we had in our hands all the time. So maybe this helped us, young Italian women, to think that we could do something more than just being at home. But when we look at the statistics, these slides are on my blog, letiziajaccheri.org, so you can go back and so on. What I want you to remember now, that for bachelor students, in average, in Europe, we are at 20% female and 80% men. For master student, same story, 20/80s. And for PhD, we are a bit better, 25% female and 75% men. And in UK, we work all the time, all the 38 countries, to try to understand why, try to understand the differences, try to understand why in Romania they are doing so well and why in other countries they are doing less well. But we don't know, we have some stories, but we don't know very much the why yet, but we know that these are the numbers and we are all the time trying to compare and to build stories. We know from the statistics of the European Commission, from the statistics that Informatics Europe keep, that on average, and I think this is scary, on average, at European level, 15% of the professors are female, only 15%. And we know that the majority of ICT specialists are men. And this is the good argument we can use if we want to write grants that will give you money to fund this kind of project. A very good argument that at least has worked for me to write is to say, look, this will have an economic effect because the companies lack talents. 53% of the employers say they lack talent. If we are able to educate more talents, you will gain more money. And if we are able to educate from the whole population, you will get more talent. So this is a simple argument that works when we go and ask companies for money. So the second part of my the second part of this talk is about projects, not research projects, but measures. So actions that we have done both in at European level and at Norwegian level to try to fill this gap. And this is another wonderful role model. It's a woman that was who was born in 1909, Rita Levi-Montalcini, who got her Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1986, in the glorious 80s. And again, I like to think that some of us were inspired. I believe very much in this notion of role models. I like to think back and think that we were inspired by this woman who has been working many years in US, but then she came back to Italy when she was almost old, and she started again. She built a research lab in Italy, and she got this Nobel Prize in medicine. So the project that we have been working a lot in Norway, that started at the end of the 90s, at the time when I became a professor, part of that effort. So in 2004, at NTNU, we could count 7% of female students in the most prestigious technology programs we have at the university. And through a set of systematic effort in this project, we arrived in 2019 at a number of 36%. And it was the time, one of the actions that we do in Norway that is very discussed, that we give extra points to the girls, not so many, but some extra points, because it's very difficult to enter our programs. You need a lot of points from the high school. So to the girls, we give some extra points. So when it came to 36, they started to tell us, now we should remove these extra points because we will have reached the 36, but luckily we are able to keep this extra point, to keep the action that we have around the university that are very similar. I have been in the presentations of the last 2 days, and those who talk about gender, you have very similar action like we have. I think something that is specific of what we have done in Norway, that the industry cooperation has been very important, both in form of sponsors, but also that the companies want these girls to visit them from the very first years. They give summer job to the girls, and they give us role models from industry that act as motivators for our young girls. But then now you should spot the people in this picture. At the time when we were like, hurrah, hurrah, we are having a lot of girls, now we are doing well, I was department head of the computer science department, and I found out suddenly that I was the only woman, not only in my own leader group, so the people in my group, but also in the people of my boss, so at the leader group of the faculty, I was alone. Then I was thinking, but what are we doing? We are cheating these girls, because they come to the universities and then they don't see, they see very few professors, they don't see any leaders. When we have the matriculation ceremonies, they only see men going around. What is going on? And then I started to become obsessed by the numbers at professor level. These are the numbers at our department. In 2017, we had 25 male and 3 point something female. When I have the point, because we have some people in partial positions. And now we have 37 male and 7 full professors. So this is an evolution that has happened at our department. But anyway, the IDUN started from my idea, from me looking at these pictures, and then I started to apply together with other people, of course, for getting funding to the projects. At the beginning, I get very small things, but then in 2019, we were able to start with a big project, 1 million euro of funding, with the specific goal of increasing the number of professors in the faculty. When we started, it's almost a shame to say that in Norway, we had 13.8% female professor in our STEM faculty, and 22 at all levels. So 13 at professor level, 22 at all level in scientific position. So we call the project Idun because Idun Reiten is the first female professor at our faculty. And then again, sometimes I have this revelation. I think we are in start phase because this Idun, she's not so much older than me. When we had the first day of the project, she was present there, and she is the first woman professor in our faculty. So in my mind, I think the numbers are still low because we have just started. And what we did in Idun, we were able to use all this funding to employ 9 professors from abroad, from Netherlands, Sweden, north of Norway, Italy, and UK. And we employed them in 20% position, because if we had used the budget to employ women in full position, so we would employ maybe 1.5 person. By like we were able to multiply this funding, and so our young people for 2 years at least, they have seen as double as many role models going around. You can say that in 2020 we were hit by the pandemic, so these people worked very much digitally with us. We were able to bring them to Norway in the last year, but anyway, this has been our main action in the project. We are still evaluating. Some of these people have get renewal of their contracts, so they are still in the network of their university, even if the Idun will end now at the end of the year. So this is how the progress has made from 2017. It was less than 14, and now it is 16. You will judge if this is good progress or if it is slow progress, I don't know. So going back to the UGAIN, you saw the video. UGAIN has been very important for me for several, not only for me, for the network, for several reasons, mainly because when we get to the UGAIN, we understood that now we are not only doing action, now we have to do research. Now we have to establish this field of gender and computer science as a research field, because as action chair of UGAIN, I sit at the table with the other action chairs in physics, in chemistry, in theoretical computer science, and they are dealing with high-level research in their field. And then if we have a cost action in gender and computer science, it means that we have to set up high-level research in this field. And we are starting. If you go on the UGAIN website, you will see papers, you will see videos, you will see keynote lectures, and you will see that we have started this movement of establishing the field as a research field. So the last part, now we are going to the end of my presentation, is about research, about this new research field of gender and computer science. Who doesn't know this young lady? Hands up. So you don't know? Okay, so Pippi, if you don't know, you have now to Google, to buy books for your children, grandchildren, because Pippi is really an amazing role model. It's a book written by Swedish author Astrid Lindgren about this young young girl who was living at home alone and was living with animals and doing very strange things and say very wise sentence, like for example this sentence, I have never tried that before, so I think I should definitely be able to do that. And this is me trying to do research in gender and computer science. I have not done much before, but we will manage. So when you start, what I tell to my PhD students or even master students, when they want to do something in a field, I ask, who are the stars? You have to start from the stars. And I think I have picked up two stars for you. One is Margaret Barnett, and her younger cooperator, Anita Sarma. We, in fact, invited her, we invited Margaret for being a speaker at the first EUGAIN scientific school, and she said yes, and she came, and she is amazing lady, and they have invented a method that comes from the human-computer interaction way of working. Is called magnifier, and it's a method to assess a product, a software, according to gender inclusiveness seen as a product attribute. If you are interested, you should go on the EUGAIN website and you will find a lecture by Anita about the gender mag. It's amazing work. And the main lessons learned by studying the work of these authors is that when you work for inclusion, you not only include, you not only improve for the dimension that you are working for example, gender in this case, you improve for everybody. And this is something that we also experience in Norway in our ADA project, that when we work to improve the study programs for the ADA projects, the boys were also more satisfied and we limited the dropout of the boys. Another star is Professor Alexander Serebrenik from the Netherlands. He has helped me very much. He has been keynote at our school. And he addressed the problem from a more software engineering perspective. So he studies the communication in the team, and he studies together with his team how gender influence the communication in software engineering teams. Again, you find this particular video about this gender and community smells. Community smells, for those of you who are in software engineering, you know that the smells are a technical concept, the technical depth, and he talks about social depths when we come to diversity and teams communication. So we have this EUGAIN school. As I mentioned, we will plan a school. I'm not sure if we will have school in 23, for sure we will have in 24. And if you are interested, please follow us on Twitter, social media, join EUGAIN. So maybe for those who are PhD students, you will be interested in attending the next version of the EUGAIN school. At NTNU, we have been doing some gender research already from before. For example, we have a workshop that where we invite children to code each week or almost from the region of Trondheim. And for this workshop, we collect data about how children program, about how children learn, how they enjoy. And we also keep track of the statistic about female and male, and we have done some publications about gender differences in how children learn. I have participated even before EUGAIN. We had relations to these people that now are in EUGAIN, like Elisa Rubeni from UK and Monica Landoni from Switzerland, and we have worked to see how digital storytelling can be used to mitigate gender stereotypes in children. The last research that we have started approximately 1 year ago is about trying to frame the gender research below the UN Goal 5 umbrella. And to do so, we have studied carefully the different targets of the UN Goal 5, and we have set up a literature review. We have picked up the studies in the literature that address this particular relationship, AI and UN Goal 5. We find 29 studies, and we find that most of the studies look in the relationship gender by AI. Most of the studies are about the bad effect that AI can have on gender. We had a conversation with you, Catherine, before exactly about this, that we are very much concerned that AI will worsen the situation. We see some studies about gender in AI, so that people have studied the team that produced AI from a gender perspective. And we think in my team that the interesting question now to explore is how can we develop AI proposals that help gender equality? How can we look in the other way around? Another literature review look at the relationship between, that we have done, look at the relationship between gender equality and software development processes. And this is really fresh research that we have not published yet. So please, if you see errors, problems, inconsistency, tell me, because we start saying that the processes that we have now, the Scrum, the Kanban, the XP, they don't address gender equality. They don't say anything. And among other things, I don't know if you know that the Agile Manifesto was written in year 2000 by 17 men. Now it would be unbelievable. Anyway, so we have studied this relationship, gender and development processes, and we find that the studies address mainly target 5.5 about leadership and 5.1 about end discrimination. And we find that the studies list these challenges: stereotype, motherhood, pay gap, gender preferences, retention problems, imposter syndrome, gender bias, and implicit bias. And then we have, together with my students, proposed some modules that now we will find out how to insert in the Scrum or in the DevOps. We have not decided exactly where to insert these modules. We have not decided how to insert, if we should start by picking up one or two of these modules, if we should now try in student project. We are really at this level. We have identified the challenges, we have identified the modules, and now it's time to deploy these modules in some empirical setting. So now I have presented to you the education, the project, the research. Now some advice for you. If you don't have any initiatives at your universities, I think that most of you have. So, because when I came here, I didn't know, but now it seems that when I talk to people, you all do very interesting and good things. I was earlier today in the lecture by professor from Denmark, Brand, and you are doing wonderful things. So I don't need to give advice to you. But anyway, if you don't have actions, what you could do, you could start an ASEAN chapter, woman chapter for your town. We did it in Trondheim. It doesn't take so much work, and then you find a lot of ideas of what you can do in your specific context. What you can do, especially if you are European, you can apply to enter EU GAIN, because the difference between a normal project and the cost action is that our goal as cost action is to grow. So the more people apply, both women and men, and especially young people, the happier we are. So apply, so you will be informed. You can apply for short mission, or you can apply for virtual grant. And you can, if you don't know about the ASEAN celebration of women in computing, the next one will be in Cyprus in 2022. I will go there with my team, and several of you will be there. So we can, this is also a very good way of connecting to this kind of work. And my advice is very simple. And starting from the end, I realize that everything is research. So even when you think that you are only setting up some action, but when you measure, when you do something and then you measure again, you are doing research. So you are already, we were already doing research before we knew that we were doing. So probably many of you are already researchers in gender and computer science without knowing it. So I hope that you will join the movement, and then celebrate, document, and keep and empower the female you have, and not least keep and empower yourself. We all have different stories. Not everybody has been lucky as me, who get a professorship when I was 37 years old. You can become professor when you are 60 or when you are 65 or 55. If you want to go ahead with research, you should not give up, and you should do what you like to do. So I would like to thank the Research Council of Norway for the very generous grant for the EDUN project, the Cost Action for the EU GAIN, you for inviting me and giving me the possibility of being closing keynote of this wonderful conference. And yes, that's my talk.
Thank you very much. We have a few minutes for questions, and our guides will tell us if there's any questions from the folks online. So are there any questions from people here? There's one there in the middle.
Letizia. So you mentioned that the Agile manifesto was written by 17 men, and that's terrible. And how do we bring in gender equality into Agile and DevOps? The ISO, IEC, IEEE 2675 standard for DevOps has a statement requiring that teams include gender diversity, neurodiversity, and other types of diversity, because I wrote it in. That's not the point. The point is, it's up to us to make that change. I wanted to see it, so I made it happen. And I think every one of us can get involved in a committee, a group, present a wonderful talk, or do whatever it takes. And I don't care if anybody else here for. I'm enthralled. I think this is brilliant. I'd love to see more of it.
Thank you very much. Anybody bored? Do we have questions in the chat? Yes.
One very important thing is that more men will be active in this activity to bring more women to sciences, to computer science, and it's not just women for women.
I can repeat what you say, that you say that is important that men are in the conversation, in the task force. And I think I will travel this evening very relieved, because here I met a community of women and men that work for the same values. I was yesterday, when I attended the Google talk, I was almost moved, because I was not expecting the Google speaker to say that the most important thing is ethics and communication. So it is the typical thing that I would say. So seeing a man from Google saying something like this, I said, wow, I am at home. I was feeling that I came at home in this conference. Yes.
You said that what the improvements you made are also improvements for the boys, I think you said. What you could give an example for that? What kind of improvement was that also was an improvement for the boys?
So we have a paper. I'm not author, but written about the other project that show correlation between the increase of women and the dropout of men going down. So we have these numbers, but we don't know why. It's like this morning when we were looking at the women like more to work with people and men with things, but we don't know why. We have the trends, but we don't know why. In my mind, it's more, I interpret also by looking at this gender mag, that when you improve inclusion for one group, you improve also for the other group. So, but I don't know exactly why when we increase. I don't like the story that the boys are more happy because there are more girls around. I think it's too simple, and yeah, but we have to dig more into the why.
We have one question online, which I'll read out, and then a couple more in person. The question online is from Monica Ward, who is from Ireland. And she said, can you comment on getting more men involved and not thinking that is a women's only issue? So for example, the man you were talking to who said there were 2 talks on this already.
So what I do, I try to, we have this concept of low-hanging fruits. So I try to work with the men who are already interested, who are positively, because if I use my life, my time to convince the guy who thinks this is boring, then I use a lot of time and effort and positive energy there. So I try to find the men that are positively involved. And I see that for each year, it becomes easier and easier. I see, for example, in Informatics Europe, they are really looking for women who want to sit in the board of Informatics Europe. And it, now, as you say, Ruth, it's time that we keep talking, keep helping each other, keep putting more women in the role model places. Yes.
Time for a few more questions. Yep.
Just an example of that for male students. I recall that one of my former students evaluate research women's part in getting education research, and she made a study on communication patterns in the classroom when it was the course was about IT skills, and when there was male-dominated classroom, and the report is that what kind of communication there is between the students, and that was a silent class, very little. When it was total female class, there was a lot of communication, and when it was about half and half, then it was still less communication, but still also males, they ask their peers, and females are asked from their peers for help. And so it's clearly seen that the males who were there present there, they had the courage of asking stuff, whereas in the male-dominated classroom, they didn't dare to ask.
Interesting. Yes.
Yeah, I couldn't help think of.
Yeah, it's the same.
I couldn't help think of maybe Elizabeth opening Keynote. You presented a model where you had effects pushing from the top, also a bottom-up effect, and an effect from the academic community from the side. I wonder if this model actually could really also kind of push from all the sides for this issue. Very important issue to change for exactly the reasons that were introduced in the film in the beginning. I don't know if you thought about this, but
I have thought about that, but it's true that when you get catched in a project, you lose a bit of perspective. Like, for example, at NTNU, we have the ADA that is about female students. We have the IDUN that is about scientific personnel, but we don't have anything about the gap. So how to go from master to PhD. So we lack this, when you say all the level, we lack some levels, either because we don't see or because we don't have the resources to do everything at the same time. So, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so your numbers of faculty in your department, the percentage of women versus men were terrible. It looked like the women went up just a little bit and the men went up a lot more, right? Those are the numbers. So that happened at our university also. And what we ended up doing was the women in the science departments got together because each science department had only 1 to 3 women. And then we got together and together we were more and we were able to make some changes. It took about 15, 20 years to make those changes. And now all those departments have like 8 women or more. So that's another way to try and build mass to make changes.
This is a very good idea. I had not thought about that.
I'm from America. You know, those problems too. Yeah.
Yes.
So you had invoked Kimberly Crenshaw's concept of intersectionality, that you can be doubly, triply discriminated against. And we know that often when we speak of, developing things for women, white women are usually at the center of it, Eurocentric women. So I'm curious what suggestions you might have for as we approach this idea of intersectionality and considering that impact on increasing the amount of women and girls in computer science and increasing diversity in computer science. What sorts of things might we have to do differently from your perspective to design for intersectionality and not just the women model?
So I must admit that I am at a very early stage in the launch. I was discussing with my colleague, how can we get data about race and ethnicity in our courses? So we are at this level. We acknowledge that there are theories, that there are dependencies with intersectionality, but we have not even the data. At least I don't have the data. I have some patterns in my head. I see that most of our female professors are born in other countries, but we have not started to work neither with the data nor with specific action. So please send me emails and the suggestions because we need to work with this. Yes. Yes.
Along those lines, I think at least in your one from collecting data is that legal gender has to be male or female, and then if you want to have a non-binary view of gender in your research, it's hard to collect that kind of data. So that could be also something to gather experiences about and try to see how to approach.
We have a lot to do. We haven't done before, but we will do it. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. And if I could ask you to stay here for 1 second, and I'd also like to ask Elizabeth and Titus to come down, who gave our keynotes on Monday and Tuesday, so that on behalf of the ITICSE committee, I can present you with a little thank you gift. Thank you, Titus, and thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Letizia.
Thank you.
And it was such a lovely conference to present at because everybody was so much involved in interaction.
And one without me. Thanks again to all the keynote speakers. Okay, before we formally begin the closing, which will close fairly soon after it opens, I just have a few quick housekeeping points. So if anybody's looking at their clock and saying, is Brett going to talk for almost an hour and a half or something? The answer is no. So we will be out a little early, I would say. Is anyone missing a USB key? I believe it's Jennifer Parham Macello. We'll hold on to it and get in touch with you. The Moodle, which is hosting our videos, our recordings, and links and chats will be open for a couple of months. All right, we will also email people when it's going to be coming down and give you a heads up. Most of the recordings are there now. Yep. And today's are processing. We're at the mercy of Zoom for that. But we have some from earlier on in the conference already up already. So they'll just be another few hours or by tomorrow. If anyone is not going to take your name tag home and add it to a ridiculously large pile of name tags in your office, feel free, we'll pass them on to the next committee. You can just leave them on the registration desk on your way out. And for posters, since we had a hybrid poster session for this ITICSE, the conference committee printed some of the posters for the presenters, both physical and virtual. So it wasn't the normal where you carry your poster in and hang it up and take it down and bring it home. But if you would like to bring your poster home and you're here, you can go take your poster down. So that's good. Take it home, give it a home, share it with your colleagues. And with that, I'll start the closing ceremony. I do wish that Keith could be here. I was speaking to him this morning and he is very sad that he can't be here, but he is doing better, which is the most important thing, of course. The most important thing for me is to thank everybody who helped ITICSE 2022 in Dublin come together. This has been about a 3-year project spanning the whole pandemic up until now. Not that I'm saying it's over, but the whole pandemic up until now. And I had a fantastic committee, Keith and myself and Miko, that helped us put all of this together. And it also goes beyond our committee. So I do want to take the bulk of my short time here in thanking people, because without everybody in this room and a lot of people outside of this room, this wouldn't happen. So I'd like to thank Keith, my co-chair, if he's watching, or he'll be watching in a recording, and Miko, who you'll hear from soon, and our program chairs, Eric and Simon. Eric, I believe, is here. There's Eric. I am going to call people out because they've done such a fantastic job. So Eric and Simon, who just left for the airport, who I'll speak about in a few minutes as well. Paul Timon, who had to leave already. James Prather, who is here. Our registrars and treasurers. Keith and B, our working group chairs. Catherine Mooney down here in the front, and Rosemary Monahan up there in the back, our local organizing chairs and our local organizing committee, Alan, Roisin, Karen, Aiden, and Joe. We also had a fantastic team of student and postdoc volunteers who were behind the scenes and then in the scenes, making our hybrid experience work fairly seamlessly, which thrilled me to no end. And I'm proud to say that all of these are UCD students, largely mine and Catherine's PhD students and some of Catherine's postdocs. So in addition to saying, why did I do this PhD with them? They now have more evidence to back up that question. And I would also like to thank Yuhan Du, who is not listed here, but she also helped us out last night at the banquet and excursion, another one of Catherine's PhD students. So everybody here, have a stand up and let us embarrass you. And I will also mention that 3 of those students, Connor, Daniel, and Adam, are UCD undergraduate students in computer science and also in science on our pathway for computer science teachers at 2nd level in Ireland. Continuing the thanks for the committee, Catherine again, our diversity chair, B again, with Sean as our virtual conference and community coordinators, which sounds like Simon came up with it to mean the people that did Moodle and the hybrid stuff from the office. And sometimes from the room too, when things went wrong. Thanks to Stan and Karsten, our submission chairs, and Andreas and Steve, Andreas in person, and Steve from Nebraska as our DC chairs. And thanks to Mark and Keith. Keith's here. Is Mark here? There's Mark. There's Keith. Also a camera person, Keith. And Karen was also a camera person. I saw Karen. There she is. Mark and Keith were our poster panels, tips, techniques, and courseware chairs. Thanks to Jim and Lucia, our proceedings chairs. Thanks to Chuck Wallace, who couldn't be here in person doing our evaluations. Thanks for the nth time to Keith, who also had a fairly new role and a fairly onerous role, but a very valuable and rewarding role as our supporter liaison. And Bobin and Keith again, but not Keith Quill again, Keith Nolan again, for handling our web affairs. I'd also like to thank all of those who served as session chairs, and again, our session guides, because that's an essential part of the conference and the smooth flowing of the conference that often happens at a last minute. So we are very grateful to you. And then we have a fairly long list of associate program chairs, which I don't think they'll mind if I do you the favor of not calling out all of their names. And then an even longer list of full paper reviewers. There is way more than 100 there. I think it's more than 200. And also we had some supplementary reviewers and reviewers of short submissions. And then thank you, because if you didn't come, this wouldn't be that much fun. These numbers are accurate as of, I think, last night, and they're going to be plus or minus 1 or 2. So I'm pretty confident that we're at 376 total, 240 in person, and 136 virtual. So thank you very much for coming, both online and in person. And if the stack of unclaimed badges in my office was large, I wouldn't be mentioning it, but it's only about 15 or 20, 5 or more of whom we've heard from and who have had travel or other related issues that prevented them from coming here. Some of them are even here in Dublin, but couldn't make it to the conference. So we had a very large percentage of that 240 here on the ground. And I'm really, really thrilled about that. And thank you again for coming. I'd also like to thank the ITICSE steering company, both past and present. Like I said, this started really more than 3 years ago, I think when Keith and I sent the proposal in to Michael Carling. So all of these people have had a hand in this here today, and I would like to thank Michael, Amber, Simon, Guido, Ari, Michelle, and Anna for their help. All of these people have done significant amount of work in ITICSE over the past several decades and continued at the steering committee level to help make ITICSE 2022 in Dublin happen. I'd also like to thank the just outgoing SIGC board, who are also very instrumental in helping us in many ways to bring this conference to you. And in particular, I'd like to thank our sponsors, SIGC, ACM Europe, and Informatics Europe, and all of the people that work with them. I'd also like to sincerely thank our supporters. Supporters are fairly new to ITICSE, and largely thanks to Keith's powerhouse efforts in the supporter liaison role. We're proud to have several supporters this year, and our gold supporters who you've been interacting with for the past several days are AWS in Communities, Google, and GitLab, and they've supported us in many ways by being here and in other very important ways, including support, physical help at times, and their support is very, very appreciated. And hopefully this is just the beginning of a long relationship with our supporters and ITICSE. So thank you to our gold supporters. And our silver supporter code grade. And our bronze supporters at Microsoft and Microsoft Ireland. With additional support from the Irish National Forum for the Enhancement of Teaching and Learning in Higher Education, Fáilte Ireland, the Irish Tourist Board, Golden Key Education Publishing, and I guess we'll mention the Ireland ACM SIGC chapter, many of whom have members in the audience here. So thanks all to them as well. And I'd also like to thank UCD, the UCD School of Computer Science, the UCD College of Science, and our friends at TU Dublin for their support. Now, a few fun statistics. You already know the total attendees. The 26 countries that are present here, that's just the in-person attendees. We haven't run the stats on the full list of attendees. We had 9 working groups last Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We also saw 276 full paper submissions, which is 1 more than last year's record, which is no longer the record. So maybe 2023 can shoot for 277. And we accepted 79 papers, which you saw over the past 3 days, in addition to 12 techniques, tips, and courseware presentations, 31 posters, and 11 doctoral consortium abstracts and participants, 10 of whom were here on the ground. And for those interested in the countries, you saw these on Monday. These are just slightly updated. So we have 77 people from the United States. And in second place, probably for the first time ever at any SIGC conference ever, in a very strong second place is Ireland with 63. And remember, this is just in person. This doesn't count virtual, so I will run those numbers. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was 79 divided by 276. Okay, the ITICSE 2022 evaluation form is up. Please do complete that, both our physical and virtual attendees. Your feedback is really valuable and really appreciated. The form is available on the virtual conference platform, the Moodle, which is linked from the front page of the website. We didn't make it public because we don't want random submissions. And we'll also send out an email from Cvent in the next day or two with this link as well. So the link is here, the link is on Moodle, and soon it will be in your inbox. And please do complete that. I'm sure that Miko will look at that before 2023, and we'll take a look at it post 22 as well. And we really do appreciate your feedback. And before we move on to awards, I'd like to give a few minutes to Michael Curling, the chair of the ITICSE Steering Committee.
Thank you. Yes, the awards have to wait for just a couple of minutes. I will make it very short. I would like to take just a moment while I have you all here in the room to speak a bit about looking forward to the next upcoming ITICSE conferences. Brett has mentioned already there is a steering committee, and I just wanted to let you know how you can get involved, what we're looking for. Brett has already mentioned there are these 3 organizations that are supporting and organizing the ITICSE conference, the ITICSE board, ACM Europe, and Informatics Europe. The steering committee consists of 5 people nominated by these organizations. There are the names. I wanted to come up here briefly so that you know at least one face if you want to talk to one of us. I have been asked several times during this conference how one can get involved. Once a year on the ITICSE mailing list, we send out a call and ask for people to volunteer and come forward. But also at any time, you can email us at that mailing list there. There is also information on the website. There's the address of the ITICSE website. A little bit hidden away, we will make it more prominent in the FAQ. There's a question, how can I get involved? And it tells you what to do. But the answer is ultimately mailed to that email address. You can look at the positions on the conference committee by just going to any of the previous conference websites, look at the roles. You can either volunteer for specific roles or just say, I don't care, I just want to do anything. The general rule is we want to see prior experience. So before you get onto a committee role, we expect that you have attended a conference. Once you have attended, you can get one of the more sort of minor introductory roles. Once you have done that, you can get one of the big roles and so on. And you can, get more involved in the community. So please, if you're interested, contact us, either talk to me or email us at that email address. And then most importantly, we are always looking for volunteers to host the conference. So if you think, this has been all great and exciting and you envy Brett standing here at the front and running the show, if that is you, we would love to hear from people. And I know it is scary at first and no one ever comes up and says, yes, I definitely want to do that. People usually come up and says, maybe I could, if that's how you feel, you're already further ahead than anyone else. So if you're even thinking about it, please come to me and talk to me. We would love to speak to people who would be prepared to host the conference in future. Thank you.
I don't think Michael mentioned as well, there's also a call for reviewers that will go out around the time that the call for papers goes out, and that'll be an email normally to the ITICSE mailing list and possibly a few others. And that's definitely a good way to get involved with the community as well. We're always looking for willing and ready reviewers. And now I would like to introduce Judith from the ACM Europe Council. Oh, Miko.
Of course, you said a big thanks to many people, but of course, we focus one people to thank you, and that's you. You are the man.
Thank you. And Keith is right here. Thank you very much. I'll introduce Judith from the ACM Europe Council to present the Best Paper Award for 22.
Hi, everyone. Actually, I'm not anymore at the ACM Europe Council, but I'm a member of the Informatics for All. This is the coalition formed by the ACM Council, by the ACM Europe Council, Informatics Europe, and CPIS, and now IFIP are also sort of friends. And I'm also in the group, in the smaller group, that produced, designed, wrote the framework that was presented on Monday by Michael Kasperson. I should be there with him, but I was in a hotel in the airport because my flight was canceled. But well, that's who I am now. Now, I'm being a bit excited because I'm doing it now for, I think, 4 or 5 years even. But for the 2 last years, we couldn't meet. We couldn't meet in person. I couldn't give the awards to the people who were the award recipients. I could hardly see to whom I'm talking. Didn't see the audience. I couldn't see who are the award recipients. So it was very queer. I sat in my office at home and I talked to somebody. So now I'm talking to you, and I hopefully that I mentioned the recipients that are here and I can give them my hand. A few words of the ACM Europe Council Best Paper Award recognizing outstanding contribution to the ACM conferences in Europe. Authors will get a plaque and a €1,000 honorarium. If there are more than one author, then it is divided. As I said, for the last 2 years, I couldn't do it in person, but I'm here now. There were 5 optional best papers which were pointed at by the reviewers. Of course, they fulfilled every requirement to be able to be published at the ETC. And Eric Marenson and Simon and Brett, to some extent, we looked at these these optional papers. We read them. We also attended, well, I couldn't be here for all the papers, but I attended some papers, and the presentation also is one of the criteria. So the paper, you wrote the paper is, you have it here on the slide, right? Just down. I have your colleagues here. Yes, I'm trying to get them down. Come down. And who is taking the pictures? You do. Okay, and here this is just one. we tried with the help of ACM headquarters to prepare the certificate before the time, before we only knew today around 11 who will be the recipient of the award. So, but they prepared certificates, one certificate for you, but every one of you will get a plaque and you will have to divide the money. I've already informed ACM headquarters. They will get in touch with you. I sent them your emails, and I hope you will be successful in your further work. And good luck and congratulations.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Congratulations. Okay, I think if I'm remembering the next slide correctly, I have to take off what I'm going to now call my old hat as ITICSE 2022 co-chair and put on a relatively new hat, which is my vice chair for the SIGC board hat, and give out what was going to be 3 awards, but one person can't be here. I'll explain that in a minute. And we're going to start with the top ITICSE Working Group Report Award from 1996 to 2019. This has already been announced, so it might not be a surprise to everybody here. But Helen has been in touch, who is one of the authors on Contributing Student Pedagogy from 2008. And the full authors on this working group from 2008 are John Hamer, Quentin Cutts, Yana Yakova, Andrew Luxton Riley, Robert McCartney, Helen Purchase, Charles Redesil, Mara Sally, Kate Sanders, and Judy Sheard. So they chose to accept and have presented this award here at ITICSE 2022. And we have certificates for all the authors. We will be posting them to those who are here virtually, but we're happy to present certificates to John and Helen in person. And then when you're done. And I just realized that I should have said before that, this is part of the ITICSE 25th anniversary celebrations that were 2 years ago at the first ITICSE that had to go virtual, thus the delay in the presentation of the award by 2 years, despite it being announced 2 years ago. So I'm thrilled that you could be here. Thanks again for coming. Now, every year, SIGC presents a handful of awards to those in the SIGC community. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but traditionally these were given out at the SIGC Technical Symposium in February or March. And as the pandemic took hold, the SIGC board decided that the recipients of those awards can choose which SIGC conference they would like to receive their awards at in the next coming year after the award is announced. So the first of these awards that I was going to present today is the SIGC 2020 Award for Lifetime Service to the Computer Science Education Community. And the person who won that is Simon. Now, the plan was for Simon to bring his plaque which he received in the post in Australia some time ago, to Dublin with himself so that he could give it to me, so that I could give it back to him, so that he could bring it back to Australia. Unfortunately, fortunately, Simon made it. Unfortunately, Simon's plaque and all of his bags did not make it. And Simon was supposed to be here, bags packed with his plaque right now, and then leaving out that door and going to the airport. But given the fact that the plaque didn't make it and the recent delays at airports, he said, I think I'll just go about an hour earlier than I was going to. So he left just before the closing. So I have already talked to Allison, the chair of the ITICSE board, and we're going to defer the awarding of Simon's plaque to a yet unknown conference in the near future that Simon will attend, hopefully with his plaque. And maybe next time he'll post his plaque well ahead of time to the conference so that it will be here when he arrives. And we do have one ITICSE award that I'm very honored to say I can give to the recipient here today. This is a 2019 award for outstanding contribution to computer science education. And that is, first I want to read a few words from the nomination letter for this award. And that nomination letter said many things. It ran on many pages, but a few excerpts are here. So this award winner contributed significantly over the many years to building the computing education community and raising the profile and quality of computing education research. This person has also demonstrated enthusiasm and engagement across a broad range of computing education activities and has had a profound impact on computing education. And this person has dedicated many years to advancing the computing education discipline and is also a generous and collaborative educator and researcher. And their contributions to computing education have been numerous and have had profound impact. So if those are the high-level bullet points, you can just imagine what the several pages of details looks like, but it was very impressive. And the plaque here reads, for leadership in building the international computing education research community and raising the profile and quality of computing education research and research membership. And this plaque is dated March 14th, 2020. So I'm very proud, more than 2 years later, to present this to Lowry Malmy. And I've invited Lowry to speak to us for a few minutes, which I'm looking forward to, not only because it means I can stop talking.
Yes, as you know, I would have been giving a keynote speaking in ITICSE 2020, the conference that never happened. So it turned out I was rehearsal my presentation in the video studio at Aalto University by that time, because I had got sick just when I was going to travel. So I missed the travel and missed the conference. And when we were doing the rehearsal, then I read an email, conference cancelled. So that happened. But I think actually I'm very happy that I get this plague and this award here in ITICSE, because when I reflected back, ITICSE has had a profound role in my background and the work that we have been doing. My first ITICSE without participant was just 25 years ago in Uppsala, the second ITICSE. And by that time, I didn't even have my PhD, so I was about to finish it. I defended my thesis in October 1997. And I just remember the conference that this is different from algorithms and theory conferences or database conferences. There's nobody there who's shooting down arguments from presenters, and they are not asking nasty questions from presenters, but they're actually interested. There's a positive mindset there. So it was very, very different feeling in the conference. And so when I got my PhD done, then I'll go back to teaching and then go gradually then started writing papers about this. And actually my first international paper was in ITICSE 2000 when ITICSE was in Helsinki the first time in Finland. Now next year it will be in Turku in Finland. And then 2 years later, ITICSE 2002, I was participating the first time in ITICSE working group, the kind of famous visualization working group led by Tom Naps and Guido Rösling. And that was actually where I started building my network with international colleagues. And that was a highly positive experience for me. And thereafter, I think I participated, counted seven ITICSE working groups, and I recommended my PhD students every time that please, if you find any connection to some of the proposed topics in ITICSE working, please go there, because that's the place to network. When you are working together with a couple of colleagues for several days, so that's the way that you are building your future network. And that has been also for me very important that I know so many of you from these working groups. Then, of course, Finland has been very well. I need to highlight that Finland is, for some reason, doing very well in computer adequacy research. We are currently preparing a book with a couple of colleagues working in Finland, which will be published by Springer probably next at the end of this year, about the past, present, and future of computer adequacy research, which looks mainly from scientific perspective what has been published in our field, and that it adds there also some other perspectives that how the community has developed. And as one of the chapters, there will be the Finnish story, what has happened in Finland. And when I was counting together with several research groups in Finland, we counted that during these 20 plus years, I don't remember when the first one was PhD thesis was accepted, that there are 50 PhD thesis having accepted in Finnish universities in computing education research. And that's a significant amount of research in this field. And personally, my number 19 will be in the next August, and hopefully number 20 will be next year. So I think that kind of being a certain kind of pioneer and having success in recruiting talented PhD students who then go forward with the field, build their own networks. Some of them stay in academia, some of them, of course, go to industry, and that's fine. That's fine. Each of them find their own careers, but that's important. And the calling community has been one very important instrument there, because it's a small size conference and all the Finns, they know very well each other, and so that's why it's very easy to get collaboration if we have some funding instrument is available. When national level collaboration should be applied. Okay, fine, we find very easily. So I'm very happy about the situation in Finland. And now, for the past years, I've been very interested in looking at the development of the computer education research community. What kind of research has been carried out? How is it carried out? What kind of methodologies have been carried out? And for the latest one is how theory is being used in our research. So there will be a special issue, or actually two special issues in Asian transactions computer education. The last issue this year, and the next one should be the first issue next year. There will be in total 10 excellent papers of using theories in computer education research, published them, and they are actually all available already under the title just accepted. So I recommend reading those. Oops. I like the idea of looking at the community that we are building. We are building a new research discipline and gradually getting it more rigorous and rigorous, so that we are not having any more the reputation that they are just doing some education development and that's non-research. That some colleagues commented many years ago, but it's really, we are research discipline. And when I had the opportunity, actually, I supervised Simon's PhD thesis in 2015, and his the topic of his PhD thesis was that the emergencies of computer education research as a research discipline. I was very happy about that, and certainly many others were happy. It was a very memorable defense. And some of you have heard stories about that defense, but I don't tell them now because it's a long story. But you can imagine Simon in the tailcoat, because it's a very formal situation in Finnish defense. So you don't often see Simon in that kind of dress. Okay, so finally, when I heard this nomination, it was a present for me, because the next day, or the day, it was the day before my 60th anniversary day that I received the email that, okay, I get this award. Well, that was a great award for me, for my being 60 years old. And later on, when I looked at who had received this award earlier, and look at the early names, there are Donna Knuth, Erika Dijkstra, Niklas With. I'm among those ones. And then, of course, during the last 20 years, then the list has been populated mainly for computer education researchers. So there are people like Elias Soloway, there's Michael Curling, there's Sally Fincher, Mark Gusdial. So I'm very, very honored to be on this list as well. And so thank you for ITICSE board for this award. Thank you for the whole community. And this conference, after 3 years pause that I haven't been in any conference, it has been such a pleasure to meet so many old colleagues and discuss with you face to face. So I really appreciate this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. So we are almost done at ITICSE 2022. And I would like to bring down Mikko to talk a little bit about a word that I have wanted to hear for a very long time, ITICSE 2023.
So I have 40 minutes.
You're the boss now. I'm done.
Thanks for the work. So I mean, just in short, I could repeat easily many of the words, I mean, about these face-to-face meetings, and you know what Lauri just showed, and you know, this kind of meeting people and enjoying this kind of interaction, and hopefully I will keep this short. So first of all, before I go into details, so I mean, of course, I think I already know quite many people have been on the website. So I don't think so that there is a too big. Okay, so now you got a brief introduction to, city of Turku. I think even Brett set the standard pretty high of this year conference, having really awesome. I think we can have a couple of tricks on the sleeve, and well, I of course warmly welcome every of you. So I have actually. Oh. So I have a couple of slides as well. So yeah, but I need to share this new presentation. So okay, so like my name is Mikko. So I come from Turku, and I don't know. I mean, Laura said the number 19, so I don't know which is my number of that 19. So there is this kind of story in here as well. So I'm one number amongst those 19. So Laura has been. Yeah. So actually you are in the book. So, but anyway, if you want to learn something, this is the, I mean, look the video, there is a Get My Turku. I mean, .fi. I mean, if you want, I mean, the Turku is the oldest capital. I mean, used to be the capital of Finland, and the oldest city. So there are plenty of things to do. So if you are really in good relationship with your boss or supervisor, and you can stay there longer as well. You could easily spend 3 or 4 weeks there doing different kind of things. So, but I mean, then you need to have a good relationship with your boss. So who's paying the bill as well. So, but you know, and then about our university. I mean, 25,000 academic community, 25,000 people, and you know that. There is this kind of thing that, of course, now formally we are saying that we are the first Finnish-speaking universities. Actually, our original funds was got from the free people from Finland, and actually because I don't know how much I go into detail, but we used to have the oldest university in Turku as well, but when we were moved under governance of Sweden to under governance of Russia, then it's moved to Helsinki. So basically, University of Helsinki is the oldest university in Finland, but really it's, yeah, it's not that straightforward thing. So you know, but you know, a lot of you know people. I'm 8 faculties, engineering as well, but all the multidisciplinary faculties. So, but all of these kind of old traditional buildings as well. So you will have an awesome time in Turku as a city, but in the University of Turku as well. And I come from, I'm heading the Center for Turku Research Institute for Learning Analytics. And hopefully next year conference, I will review something to you. I'll give it a secret. Hopefully next year, because in the end, I would like to work with every of you in concrete way as well. And our punchline has been this, and from which we actually got 2 weeks ago, I received an UNESCO award for our team's life work. So I went to Paris, and there is this kind of midsummer festival in Finland. So, but that was the exact same day. The first day for the Finnish person from a summer, because everybody on their cottages, but I was glad that I went to the UNESCO headquarters to receive this. And why? Because this is our joint mission, what we want to do at large scale. But I will give you something for the next year conference, that how we can start these things. But in the end, whenever you are speaking to me, I always speak things at large scale. 100 million, 1 million, 100,000, 10,000, you know, how we can really make the change at large scale. But anyway, in short, see you in Turku 2023.
Thank you, Mikko.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing you all again in Turku next year. I will claim the privilege as the chair of the steering committee to say the last word and close the conference. I am certain that I'm speaking for just about everyone here when I say it has been such a pleasure to see people in person again, you know, to be together again with people in the same room, to have our physical conference back, to have ITICSE back. And I cannot tell you how happy I am that our first time back together in person has been such a wonderful, amazing conference. I really feel quite emotional about that, actually. It has been an amazing conference, amazingly planned, organized, and executed, both the academic and the social program. I really, really enjoyed this. And the reason I am standing up here saying the last few words is that I want to ask you to do one thing before you then can get up and go your own ways. And that one thing I would like to ask you is to give your biggest, most enthusiastic applause to the 2 people who really were ultimately responsible for this, and that is Keith and Fred.
Thanks, Michael. I'm happy to leave it at that. So since Keith is here, the only thing that I'm going to do, I said, Keed Mila Falcha, to welcome you to Ireland. And now I'm going to say some form of goodbye. The literal translation is that's it. And the word is Shanae.